Shove this piece of trash out of my bank before she contaminates the air for my real clients." The words were a whip crack in the cathedral-like quiet of the Apex Sovereign Bank. Julian Thorne's voice, usually a smooth baritone reserved for charming million-dollar investors, was twisted into a venomous snarl. His palm, manicured and heavy with a gold signet ring, connected with Ava Sterling's cheek. The slap was a gunshot, a hideous, wet sound that echoed off the Italian marble floors and vaulted ceilings, murdering every polite conversation in its wake. Ava's meticulously organized loan application, the product of 100 sleepless nights, exploded from her hands, scattering like fallen leaves across the polished stone. Have you ever witnessed a moment so ugly, so profoundly wrong, that it felt like the world stopped spinning just to watch? A moment that rips the polite mask off society and shows you the snarling beast beneath? Stick with us, because what you're about to hear is a story of how one man's bigotry didn't just cost him his job, it set fire to an entire corporate empire. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. And before we dive in, do us a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe right now, because the ending of this story is something you have to see to believe. Thorne, the branch manager, a man whose tailored suit probably cost more than Ava's rent for a year, kicked her worn leather portfolio toward the massive glass doors. His face, usually a mask of professional courtesy, was a grotesque canvas of disgust. "Security!" he bellowed, his voice bouncing off the cold, unforgiving surfaces. He pointed a trembling, accusatory finger at Ava, who was still reeling from the impact. "Get this welfare case out of my lobby, now! She's scaring away the paying customers." Instantly, a constellation of smartphones materialized. A college kid with headphones around his neck, standing by the ATM, immediately hit record, his face a mixture of shock and morbid fascination. An elderly woman in a Chanel coat gasped, her hand flying to her pearls. Two executives in crisp, dark suits exchanged a flicker of an uncomfortable glance, but, like priests avoiding a leper, altered their course and kept walking toward the private wealth management section. Ava slowly brought a hand to her stinging cheek. The heat was a blooming, angry rose on her skin, but her deep brown eyes, the color of rich earth, remained steady, an anchor of calm in a storm of public humiliation. She refused to give him the satisfaction of tears. She bent down, her movements deliberate and imbued with a quiet dignity that was a stark contrast to his spittle-flecked rage, and began to gather her scattered dreams from the floor. All the while, Thorne towered over her, his chest puffed out like a preening bird of prey, basking in the authority he so clearly adored. The massive digital clock, glowing in a serene blue above the line of tellers, read 9:18 a.m. A crucial board meeting was scheduled in less than 2 hours. Ava, still on her knees, subtly glanced at her wrist. Tucked under the frayed cuff of her simple wool coat was a vintage Patek Philippe watch, a sliver of quiet luxury, a secret language that Thorne, in his blind arrogance, completely failed to read. His focus was on his audience, the growing crowd of onlookers, their phones held high, capturing every ugly second of his power trip for digital posterity. "Just look at her," Thorne announced, his voice now a booming proclamation meant for the entire lobby. He was performing, turning one woman's humiliation into a public spectacle. Faded jeans, no makeup, probably hasn't seen the inside of a shower this week. This is precisely the type of person that leeches off our resources, that drains the system dry. Chloe Chen, a journalism student from Northwestern, had started a live stream the second she heard the slap. Her phone was her weapon, and she wielded it with righteous fury. Her Instagram feed showed 1,200 viewers and was climbing exponentially. "This is absolutely medieval," she whispered into her phone's microphone, her voice a tense, furious commentary. We're live at Apex Sovereign Bank in downtown Chicago, where the branch manager, a real piece of work, has just physically assaulted a customer. I cannot believe what I am witnessing. Comments flooded her screen in a furious, cascading waterfall. Sue the whole damn bank! This is 2025. This can't be real. Get his name. Get his badge number. Ruin him. Thorne, drunk on his own perceived power, stepped closer to Ava, deliberately invading her personal space, forcing her to smell the acrid mix of his expensive cologne and stale morning coffee. It was a nauseating, suffocating cloud of entitlement. Miss, I don't know what fairy tale land you wandered in from, but this institution serves the architects of America, the successful, the driven. We don't do charity cases. We don't deal in government handouts. His eyes, cold and dismissive, swept over her modest gray coat with theatrical disdain. Try the Community Credit Union on the South Side. They're far more accommodating to your demographic. Ava remained crouched, her hands moving with a surgeon's precision, methodically collecting her documents. Each paper was a testament to her work, her vision. When she finally rose, she was taller than he expected. Nearly his height, but her presence, her quiet, contained energy seemed to fill the space, diminishing him. I would like to speak with your regional director, she said, her voice soft but laced with something hard and unyielding, like steel wrapped in velvet. Thorne let out a bark of a laugh, a harsh, ugly sound that scraped across the marble. Regional Director Vance? Ms. Vance doesn't take meetings with people from the street. He gestured vaguely at her attire. Do you really think you can walk in here, looking like you slept in a bus station, and demand the time of a senior executive? The audacity! Chloe's livestream counter blew past 2,500 viewers. She zoomed in, her hand surprisingly steady, capturing a crystal-clear shot of his name tag. Julian Thorne, branch manager. Got him, she muttered to her audience. The whole world is getting your name now, you psychopath. This is going viral. Near the investment services desk, Eleanor Vance, the elderly woman from earlier, clutched her handbag tighter. She had marched with Dr. King in Selma. She had faced down fire hoses and snarling dogs. She recognized the specific, brutal cruelty of public humiliation, the kind designed to strip a person of their very soul. This is not right, she whispered, her voice trembling with an old, familiar anger, speaking to Ava, but loud enough for others to hear. Thorne's head snapped toward the old woman, his eyes blazing. Mrs. Vance, with all due respect, please do not encourage this disruption. We are handling the situation. David Miller, the head of security, emerged from a back office, his footsteps heavy on the marble. His radio crackled with static. He was a veteran, with a decade in the Marines and 12 years in corporate security. Something about the woman, Ava, tugged at his memory, but he couldn't place it. Her preternatural calm, the way she held herself, it didn't align with Thorne's description of an aggressive, disruptive individual. Ma'am, David said, his voice a careful, neutral buffer in the charged atmosphere. Is there a problem? Is there something we can help you with? Before Ava could utter a single word, Thorne jumped in, his voice high and strained. David, call for backup. Now. We have a code yellow. An aggressive individual is refusing to vacate the premises. A code yellow? David hesitated, his hand hovering over his radio. His brow furrowed. In his 12 years, he'd called a code yellow exactly twice, once for an armed robbery, and once for a credible bomb threat. A code yellow was for imminent, violent danger. This woman was just picking up papers. Ava's phone buzzed in her pocket, a low, insistent vibration. The caller ID flashed. J. Morrison, Chairman. She declined the call without even looking up from her task. A second later, it buzzed again. Same caller. She declined again. Thorne, ever the predator, noticed the phone case as she slipped it away. Genuine alligator leather, with subtle platinum corners. His eyes narrowed for a microsecond, a flicker of confusion, but he quickly shoved the observation away, burying it under a fresh layer of prejudice. It was probably a knockoff. Or stolen. "You see that?" Thorne bellowed, pointing at Ava's pocket. "Probably stolen. Or maybe she's a drug dealer. That's how they can afford nice things while crawling in here begging for handouts?" The accusation was a second slap, one that landed not on her skin but on her character. It was a public branding. Several customers audibly gasped. A young father instinctively pulled his small daughter behind him. The two executives who had walked away now stopped and stared, whispering to each other and pointing. Chloe's live stream went supernova. The viewer count leaped from 2,500 to 5,000 in seconds. Screenshots were flooding Twitter, now X, with the hashtag #ApexShame. Someone had already identified the branch location and posted the corporate customer service number, which was now being bombarded. "This is insane," Chloe narrated, her voice shaking with rage. "He just accused her of being a drug dealer because she has a nice phone case. The racism, the classism, it's not even a dog whistle, it's a foghorn." Ava's portfolio lay open on the floor. As she gathered the last of the scattered pages, a first-class boarding pass became visible. O'Hare to Geneva, departing that afternoon. Thorne didn't notice, but David's sharp eyes caught the glint of the airline's gold lettering. His gut churned. Something was fundamentally, catastrophically wrong here. "Ma'am," David tried again, his tone softer this time. "Perhaps we can step into the manager's office and resolve this privately." "Absolutely not," Thorne interjected, his authority absolute. "She doesn't get the privilege of a private meeting. She gets the privilege of an escort to the curb." The digital clock ticked over. 9:25 a.m. The board meeting was now just over an hour away. Ava's phone buzzed a third time. "J. Morrison, chairman." The persistence was unusual. She glanced at the screen, her expression a perfect, unreadable mask. She declined the call again and slipped the phone back into her coat pocket, where it nestled against a sleek, heavy wallet. Thorne caught a flash of black plastic as she did. It wasn't a standard credit card. The material was different, a matte black metal that seemed to absorb the light. But his pride was a cornered animal now. The live stream, the staring customers, the whispered condemnations. He had made his stand in public. Backing down now would be an admission that he had assaulted an innocent person, a mistake his 12-year career at Apex could not survive. "Call corporate security," he ordered David, his voice a low growl. "I want her formally trespassed from all Apex sovereign properties. Get it done." David's hand did not move. His radio remained clipped to his belt, silent. Thorne's face reddened to a dangerous shade of plum. "Did you hear me, Miller? I said, call corporate." "I heard you, Mr. Thorne," David said, his voice quiet but firm. The tension between the two men stretched taut, a high-voltage wire about to snap. The customers sensed the shift in power. Chloe expertly adjusted her phone's angle, capturing both men's faces in a single dramatic frame. 9:27 a.m. The board meeting loomed. Ava stood slowly, her papers finally clutched neatly in her hand. She looked directly at Julian Thorne for the first time since the slap, and her eyes were not angry or hurt. They were disappointed. "Julian," she said, her voice a quiet command that cut through the tension. "You should make the call." Just then, Jessica Riley, the assistant branch manager, came clicking urgently across the marble floor, a forced diplomatic smile plastered on her face. The smile faltered the moment she saw Chloe's phone, the live stream, the ring of security guards, and the sheer radioactive tension radiating from her boss. What is the situation here?" Jessica asked, her voice a strained attempt at professional calm, her eyes darting between the viral disaster unfolding on the phone and the thunderous look on Thorne's face. His jaw tightened. He expected unwavering support, not questions. "Just removing a disruptive individual, Jessica." She was asked politely to leave and refused. Politely? Chloe's voice, a clear, ringing bell of truth, carried across the lobby and to her now 7,000 viewers. "He slapped her across the face and called her trash. I have it all on video." Jessica's professional composure shattered. Her face went pale. "Marcus, did you—" "I handled it appropriately," Thorne cut her off, his voice sharp as broken glass. "This person was creating a disturbance, making our high-net-worth clients uncomfortable." The digital clock glowed. 9:29 a.m. The board meeting was in 61 minutes. Ava's phone buzzed a fourth time. Jay Morrison, chairman. She glanced at the screen, then at Thorne, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Pity, perhaps? The call went to voicemail. "See?" Thorne pointed a triumphant finger at her phone. "The dealers are getting impatient. They know she's not on her corner where she's supposed to be." Jessica Riley had worked in retail banking for 8 years. She was an expert at reading subtle signals of wealth. She saw them all over Ava Sterling. The coat was a wool cashmere blend. The simple leather boots were clearly Italian, and the alligator phone case she'd glimpsed cost more than her monthly mortgage payment. But Thorne was her supervisor. Contradicting him this publicly would be career suicide. "Ma'am," Jessica said, addressing Ava with careful deference, "perhaps we can discuss your banking needs in a more private setting." "Stop coddling her," Thorne snapped. "She is not a customer. Look at her, Jessica, just look at her. Does she look like she belongs in our premier flagship branch?" Chloe's livestream counter hit 9,000 viewers. The comment section was a blur of pure rage. "Someone call 911. That's assault. Where is his manager? Get the regional director on the phone now. This is a masterclass in discrimination. She's going to own this bank by sundown." Screenshots were now circulating on every major social media platform. The hashtag #OnOurBankingWhilePoor was trending nationally, right alongside Trustmark Apex Shame. A local news blogger, tipped off by a viewer, had just arrived outside, interviewing customers who had witnessed the assault through the floor-to-ceiling windows. 3 more security guards, summoned by a panicked teller, appeared from different parts of the bank. They formed a loose, intimidating circle around Ava. But David Miller remained closest to her, his radio still silent, a small act of defiance against Thorne's escalating tyranny. This whole picture was wrong. The woman's calm, her expensive accessories, the way she carried herself with the quiet assurance of inherited power. None of it fit Thorne's hateful narrative. "Ma'am," David said quietly, his voice full of a respect Thorne had forsaken. "I need you to understand that you are being asked to leave the property." Ava looked at him, and her gaze was direct and clear. "I understand what I'm being asked to do, David. What I fail to understand is why." Her voice didn't just carry, it resonated, imbued with an authority that made David unconsciously take a half step back. In his 12 years, he'd learned to read people like books. This woman wasn't dangerous. She wasn't even angry. But she was most definitely not intimidated. Thorne's fragile confidence surged as his reinforcements arrived. "You see, even our security team recognizes the threat. This is precisely why we have these protocols in place. The main branch's phone system began to light up like a Christmas tree in a lightning storm. The front desk receptionist was fielding a tidal wave of fury. "Apex Sovereign, how can I—" "No, sir, I am not at liberty to comment on—" "Ma'am, I will have to transfer you to—" "Yes, I understand you saw the video." Each call made Thorne more defensive, more entrenched in his lie. Each ring of the phone felt like another nail being hammered into his professional coffin. But retreat was no longer an option. 9:35 a.m. Board meeting in 55 minutes. Outside, a Channel 5 news van screeched into a parking spot. A reporter, Lisa Chang, emerged with a cameraman, her phone already buzzing with updates from her assignment editor about the viral video. This is the kind of story that vaporizes careers, Jessica thought, her own included. Eleanor Vance, the elderly woman, bravely approached the security perimeter, her small, frail frame dwarfed by the uniformed guards. "Officers, this woman has done absolutely nothing wrong. I have been watching this entire time. She has been a model of decorum." "Ma'am, please step back," one of the newer, younger guards instructed her mechanically. "Don't you ma'am me, you young pup," Mrs. Vance snapped, her voice sharp with indignation. "I have banked at this institution since it was a single building on LaSalle Street. I've been a loyal customer longer than you've been alive. This is discrimination. It is ugly. It is immoral. And it is happening right in front of you." Thorne's face flushed a deep, mottled crimson. "Mrs. Vance, with all due respect, you do not understand the full context of the situation." "I understand a bully hitting a woman in public," she shot back, her words like darts. "I understand prejudice when I see it. It has the same ugly face it had 60 years ago." Chloe pivoted, capturing Mrs. Vance's impassioned defense. The old woman's courage was a spark in the darkness, and it resonated powerfully with the viewers. The comment section exploded with hearts and clapping emojis. The viewer count leaped to 12,000 and was accelerating. Jessica Riley made a decision. It would either save her career or end it. "Marcus," she said, her voice low but firm, "we need to de-escalate this. Now. Move it to your office, away from the phones and the cameras." "No." Thorne's voice was a roar that silenced the entire lobby. "I want everyone to see. I want every single person to see how we handle people who think they can disrupt our business. This bank serves successful people, not what, Julian?" Ava's voice cut through his rant like a surgeon's scalpel, precise and cold. The entire lobby fell into a deep, profound silence. Even Chloe's narration stopped mid-sentence. Every customer, every employee, every security guard held their breath, waiting for his next words, the ones that would seal his fate. Thorne's mouth worked, but no sound came out. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. "Not people who don't belong here," he finally choked out, the words lame and pathetic in the heavy air. 9:40 a.m. Board meeting in 50 minutes. Ava's phone buzzed again. This time she answered it. "Yes, James," she said. Her voice was quiet, but in the tomb-like silence of the lobby, every single person heard her side of the conversation. "No, I'm still at the Chicago Central branch. Yes, downtown. There's been a situation." A small, humorless smile touched her lips. "No, don't send anyone down just yet. I think I need 5 more minutes to gather all the necessary evidence." She ended the call and slipped the phone back into her coat. Thorne's eyes narrowed, his mind grasping for a narrative that still made sense. "Who was that? Your dealer? Your pimp? Calling to see why you're late?" The accusation hung in the air like poison gas, a final, desperate act of character assassination. Chloe's live stream hit 15,000 viewers. Someone in the comments had already created a Wikipedia page for the Apex Sovereign Assault incident. Sarah Park closed her eyes. It was over. Her career was over. There was no coming back from this level of brand-destroying catastrophe, regardless of who was ultimately right or wrong. David Miller made his decision. "Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice ringing with newfound authority, I am officially relieving you of command of this situation. I am calling corporate command. You are no longer giving the orders here." Thorne exploded in a final, sputtering burst of rage. "Security works for management, Miller, not the other way around. You are fired." His outburst, captured with perfect clarity by a dozen phones, echoed off the marble walls. 9:42 a.m. Board meeting in 48 minutes. Ava Sterling straightened to her full height, her posture regal. When she spoke, her voice carried the quiet, unshakable authority of someone who doesn't need to shout to be obeyed. "Julian, you have exactly 60 seconds to apologize to me, to Mrs. Vance, and to every customer in this lobby whose morning you have ruined. Reconsider your position." Thorne's laughter was a sharp, cruel, broken thing. 60 seconds? Or what? You'll call your social worker? You'll organize a protest? With deliberate, theatrical slowness, Ava opened her leather portfolio. The first document she withdrew was not a loan application. It was a laminated ID badge, black with stark gold lettering. It caught the light from the crystal chandeliers, flashing like a mirror. Apex Sovereign Bank, Corporate Board of Directors. Ava Sterling, Chief Executive Officer. Thorne's derisive laughter choked and died in his throat. "Or," Ava said, her voice dropping to a deadly quiet whisper, "I'll call an emergency board meeting to discuss immediate, unscheduled, and permanent personnel changes at the executive level. Starting with you." The silence that followed was absolute. A black hole that sucked all the air and sound out of the vast lobby. Chloe's jaw literally dropped, her narration ceasing as she frantically zoomed in on the badge, her phone shaking. Jessica Riley's face went a ghostly, chalky white. David Miller took an involuntary step back, a silent, "Oh my God," forming on his lips. Mrs. Vance, however, simply smiled, a slow, deeply satisfied smile. Thorne's eyes darted frantically between the impossible badge and Ava's calm, impassive face. His brain was a frantic scramble of short-circuiting synapses. That's a fake," he stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak. You can't just print something like that." Ava withdrew her phone and dialed a 4-digit internal extension. The call connected instantly, and she put it on speaker. "Security Command Center Director Reed speaking." The voice was female, crisp, and no nonsense. "Evelyn, this is Ava Sterling. Authorization code Sierra Tango X-Ray 90. Execute protocol Crimson Shield at the Chicago Central Branch. I have a compromised executive creating a hostile environment." "Understood, Mrs. Sterling," the voice replied without a hint of surprise. "Corporate Tactical Security is on site. We have been monitoring the live stream for the past 20 minutes, awaiting your command. We are entering the lobby now. ETA, 15 seconds. The entire lobby heard both sides of the conversation. Thorne's knees gave out. He physically buckled, his hands grasping at a nearby counter for support. Chloe's live stream exploded. The viewer count jumped from 15,000 to 25,000 in the 30 seconds it took for the reality to sink in. The comments were a frenzied, unreadable blur. Holy s... She's the CEO. This is the greatest plot twist in human history. He is so unbelievably, monumentally fired. This is better than any movie I've ever seen. Screenshots of the CEO badge reveal spread across the internet like a digital wildfire. CEO reveal was now trending #1 worldwide, eclipsing Tots Apex Shame and Kotzer's Justice for Ava. Thorne's mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. His face cycled through a kaleidoscope of emotions, raw denial, dawning recognition, and finally, pure, unadulterated terror. Ms. Sterling, your appearance, I didn't recognize... He stumbled over his words, his earlier swagger and arrogance dissolving into a puddle of pathetic excuses. You didn't recognize me, Ava repeated, her voice dangerously calm. Because you saw a woman in simple clothes, and your prejudice filled in the rest. You didn't see a potential customer. You saw trash. She withdrew a second document from her portfolio. It was on official corporate letterhead, covered in legal seals and signatures. This is the summary of an emergency workplace investigation. Case number 2025-4A7. It was initiated 3 weeks ago, Julian, following dozens of credible reports of discriminatory practices, loan rejection bias, and verbal abuse of minority customers, all originating from this branch. All under your management. Jessica Riley's hands trembled as the horrifying implications crashed down on her. This wasn't a random encounter. It was a sting operation. Corporate had been investigating Thorne for weeks. The board meeting I am supposed to be attending in, Ava paused to check her Patek Philippe. 43 minutes was specifically called to review the findings of this investigation and to vote on your termination. Your actions today, Julian, have just become Exhibit A, B, and C. You just made our legal case airtight. David Miller's radio crackled to life. All units, Director Reed is on the floor. Stand down and await her instructions. As if on cue, the main entrance doors swished open. 3 men and a woman in dark, impeccably tailored suits entered the bank. They moved with the quiet efficiency of a special forces unit. The woman in the lead, Director Evelyn Reed, had sharp eyes that swept the lobby, instantly identifying Thorne, Ava, and David. Miss Sterling, Director Reed said, her voice a perfect match for the one on the phone. There was no surprise, only professional deference. We received your call. Thank you, Evelyn, Ava said. Please document everything. Mr. Thorne has provided us with a wealth of irrefutable evidence for our discrimination and assault case against him. Chloe's phone captured every single glorious moment. Her student journalism project had just become the most watched piece of corporate drama in social media history. News outlets were already flooding her DMs, offering thousands of dollars to license her footage. Director Reed activated her body camera and withdrew an official-looking tablet. Mr. Thorne, I am required to inform you that this entire interaction is now being recorded as part of a formal corporate and criminal investigation. Thorne's voice was a cracked whisper. This is a misunderstanding. I was just what? Eleanor Vance's voice cut through his pathetic excuse, like a hot knife through butter. Just hitting customers? Just calling them drug dealers? Just humiliating a woman in public based on the color of her skin and the clothes on her back? The elderly woman had positioned herself perfectly in Chloe's camera frame, a matriarch of moral authority. Evelyn Reed consulted her tablet, her face grim. Mr. Thorne, according to our real-time social media analysis team, you made the following statements, which were broadcast live to an audience that peaked at over 25,000 people. Get this trash out of my bank. Welfare queen. Drug dealer. And, I quote, people like you drain resources from successful Americans. Is this an accurate transcript of your statements? Thorne's silence was a confession. You also initiated unwanted and aggressive physical contact with Ms. Sterling, specifically striking her across the face with an open palm. Is this accurate? The situation was hostile. Yes or no, Mr. Thorne? Director Reed's voice was like ice. Yes, he whispered. The admission, soft as it was, echoed through the lobby like a gunshot. Chloe's viewers heard everything. The viewer count ticked past 30,000. Ava withdrew one final document from her portfolio, the one she'd been holding in reserve. It was on the letterhead of the corporate legal department, dated that very morning. This is an authorization for immediate termination, based on the Executive Override Protocol. It is effective immediately upon incontrovertible evidence of criminal assault against a customer or a corporate officer, I believe, Julian, we have met that standard. Thorne's legs finally gave out. He collapsed into one of the plush leather lobby chairs, his face buried in his hands, his body racked with silent, pathetic sobs. Jessica Riley, seeing her opening, found her voice. Ms. Sterling, for the record, I want to state that I did not support Mr. Thorne's actions. I attempted to de-escalate the situation. I know you did, Jessica, Ava said, her voice softening for the first time. Your employee record reflects consistent professionalism and high marks in customer service. This investigation was targeting a specific pattern of behavior, not the entire branch. A wave of profound relief washed over Jessica's face. Her career might just survive this nuclear event. David Miller approached cautiously. Ma'am, Ms. Sterling, I apologize for not acting sooner. My gut told me something was wrong, but I hesitated. I should have trusted my instincts. You showed restraint and professionalism under pressure, David, Ava replied, offering him a small, appreciative nod. You refused an unlawful order. That's exactly what I expect from my head of security. Director Reed read from her checklist, her voice devoid of emotion. Mr. Thorne, please surrender your employee ID, your building access cards, and all company property currently in your possession. Thorne's hands shook so violently he could barely unclip the badge from his suit jacket. The same badge he had used as a shield for his prejudice for 12 years was now the primary piece of evidence in his own professional execution. 9:48 a.m. The board meeting was in 42 minutes, or rather, the meeting's agenda had just been dramatically rewritten. Oh, my God! Chloe finally whispered to her audience. I literally cannot believe what just happened. This is the most insane, most satisfying plot twist I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Her comment section was pure, unadulterated chaos. News outlets from CNN to the BBC were now in a bidding war in her DMs. Her CEO reveal was trending #1 worldwide. Ava looked directly into Chloe's camera for the first time, addressing the tens of thousands of people watching. Change doesn't always come from a memo sent down from the top, she said, her voice clear and strong. Sometimes it comes from brave people who are willing to hit record and document injustice when they see it. Chloe's hand holding the phone trembled slightly. She wasn't just a reporter anymore. She had become a part of the story she was telling. Director Reed's tablet displayed new data that made Thorne's face, if possible, drain of even more color. Mr. Thorne, I am required to present the findings of the internal investigation before proceeding. Ava stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had spent her life in boardrooms making billion-dollar decisions. Branch 47's customer satisfaction ratings among minority demographics are 31% below the corporate average. The retention rate for African American and Hispanic customers has declined by 23% in the last 18 months. That's since you took over management, Julian. Those numbers don't tell the whole story, he started to protest. I'm not finished. Ava's tone cut him off like a razor. This branch, under your leadership, has cost this company $4.7 million in legal settlements for discrimination complaints in the past 18 months alone. That is 340% higher than any other Apex sovereign location in the entire country. Chloe's live stream counter hit 35,000 viewers. Financial news networks were now ripping her footage for their breaking news segments, attributing it to citizen journalist Chloe Chen. Director Reed continued her recitation of the corporate gospel of doom. The Corporate Discrimination Response Protocol, Section 4.7, states that any employee initiating non-consensual physical contact with a customer faces immediate termination without the possibility of a severance package. Subsection C specifically addresses public humiliation based on perceived racial or economic characteristics. Mr. Thorne, your statements today regarding welfare dependency, drug dealing, and resource drainage are all classified as racially motivated harassment under both federal employment law and our own corporate code of conduct. This is entrapment, Thorne finally shrieked, a last desperate cry. You set me up. How was I supposed to know who you were? You weren't supposed to know anything, Julian, Ava interrupted, her voice tired but firm. You were supposed to be a decent human being. You were supposed to treat every single person who walks through that door with basic dignity, regardless of what they look like, what they wear, or how much money you think they have in their pocket. That was the only test, and you failed it in the most spectacular way imaginable. The lobby had become a makeshift courtroom, and the verdict was in. Ava took out her phone again and opened the Apex Sovereign Banking app, which also displayed real-time stock market data. Let's talk about the cost of your prejudice, shall we, Julian? At 9:18 a.m., when you so bravely struck me, Apex Sovereign stock was trading at $127.43 per share. She turned the screen towards Chloe's camera so her 40,000 viewers and the world could see the numbers. It is now 9:55 a.m. After footage of your little performance went viral, we are trading at $124.67. That is a drop of $2.76 in 37 minutes. Thorne's face went completely blank. The numbers were too big, too abstract. Let me make it clearer for you, Ava said, her voice cold as a banker's heart. That single act of yours has, as of this moment, erased approximately $847 million from our company's market capitalization. Every minute that this video of you circulates, it costs our shareholders, the people who pay your salary, roughly $22 million in investor confidence. Director Reed's tablet chimed with an urgent notification. Ms. Gusterling, I'm receiving real-time reports from our crisis management team. CNN, Fox Business, and Bloomberg are all requesting an official corporate statement. The Today Show wants to book you for a live interview tomorrow morning. Of course they do, Ava said, her eyes showing the immense weight of corporate leadership. This isn't just about Branch 47 anymore, Julian. Your actions have made you the new face of discrimination in the American banking industry. Chloe zoomed in on the stock price display on Ava's phone. Her comment section went wild with financial analysis. Apex down 2.2% and still falling. This guy just cost them almost $1 billion. Short sellers are about to make an absolute killing on this. Justice ain't cheap, apparently. Jessica Riley's phone was buzzing incessantly with text messages from other branch managers across the city. The story was spreading through internal channels even faster than it was on social media. The board meeting I am supposed to be at, Ava continued, checking her watch, has now been reclassified as a Level 1 crisis management session. Our chairman, James Morrison, is currently fielding frantic calls from institutional investors who are, shall we say, deeply concerned about the underlying culture of our corporation. She opened her email app, scrolling through dozens of messages with subject lines like urgent, legal exposure, and PR disaster. Our legal department is recommending we immediately begin settlement discussions for the dozens of potential civil rights lawsuits that are likely to be filed before lunch. Marketing is suggesting a multi-million-dollar public apology campaign. And HR is trying to calculate the cost of implementing system-wide, mandatory anti-discrimination training for our 50,000 employees, all because of you. Thorne made one last, desperate, pathetic plea. I can fix this. Please, give me another chance. I'll take sensitivity training, anger management, whatever you want. Julian? Ava's voice was quiet, but it was the quiet of a tomb. You didn't just make a mistake. You revealed your character, and your character is a liability our shareholders can no longer afford. Director Reed read from her tablet, her voice the final, formal nail in his coffin. Employment Termination Code 7 Alpha, gross misconduct resulting in catastrophic corporate liability exposure. Effective immediately, Marcus Thorne is terminated from Apex Sovereign Bank and all its subsidiaries. Furthermore, per Federal Banking Regulation 12, CFR 337.6, the assault of a customer by a bank officer triggers a mandatory report to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. Your federal banking license and your future eligibility for employment in the financial industry are now under federal review. His career wasn't just ending. It was being systematically incinerated in real time before a live global audience. Your final paycheck will reflect wages earned through yesterday only. No severance packages are authorized under a Code 7 Alpha termination. Your corporate health insurance coverage ends at midnight tonight. The corporate machine, now fully engaged, moved with ruthless, terrifying efficiency. Thorne's access cards were deactivated remotely. His employee email account vanished into the digital ether. His entire 12-year career was deleted with a few keystrokes. Chloe's audience had swelled to over 50,000 viewers. Major news networks were now in a frantic bidding war for exclusive rights to her footage. Banking While Black was trending in 12 different countries. Mrs. Vance approached the security perimeter. "Young lady," she said, addressing Chloe directly, "you make sure that this video never, ever disappears. People need to see this. They need to see what real accountability looks like." "Yes, ma'am," Chloe said, her voice filled with awe. "I'm backing it up to every cloud service I have." Ava turned to address Chloe's camera directly, speaking to the world. This incident represents a deep sickness of unconscious bias in corporate America, but it also demonstrates the immense power of radical transparency and immediate, decisive accountability. Her words transformed the viral video from a piece of shocking entertainment into a powerful educational tool. To our customers watching this, we have failed you. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of your appearance, your accent, or your economic status. And to our employees, this is the new standard. There will be no exceptions. There will be no second chances. 10:05 a.m. The board meeting was in 25 minutes. Director Reed concluded her official business. "Mr. Thorne, corporate security will now escort you from the building. You will be given 15 minutes to collect your personal items from your office, under direct supervision." Two of the corporate security officers flanked Thorne as he rose on shaking, unsteady legs. His 12 years of carefully cultivated authority had evaporated in less than an hour. "This isn't over," he muttered, but his voice was a hollow whisper, utterly devoid of conviction. "You're right, Julian. It isn't," Ava replied, her voice echoing in the silent lobby. "Your actions today will become the centerpiece of our new company-wide training program on dignity and respect. Every single new hire at this bank for the next decade will learn exactly what not to do by studying your choices today." Thorne's face crumpled. It was the ultimate humiliation. He wasn't just fired. He was being turned into a permanent cautionary tale, a corporate ghost doomed to haunt the training rooms of the company he'd disgraced. As security escorted him toward the glass-walled office that was no longer his, Jessica Park stepped forward. "Ms. Sterling, how can I help? What do we do now to start rebuilding trust with our customers after this?" "You can start by doing exactly what you tried to do today, Jessica," Ava said. "Promote de-escalation, lead with dignity, and provide professional, unbiased service. And you can do it as the new interim branch manager, effective immediately." Jessica's eyes widened in shock, then filled with tears of gratitude. David Miller radioed his team. "All clear in the main lobby. Let's resume normal operations." But nothing would ever be normal again. Branch 47 had just become the most famous and infamous bank branch in America. Chloe's live stream showed no signs of slowing down. "So, I came here today to deposit my student loan check," she said to her rapt audience, "and I think I accidentally documented the biggest corporate justice story of the year." Her viewers were already creating memes, writing blog posts, and sharing the footage across every platform imaginable. 10:10 a.m. The board meeting was in 20 minutes. Ava calmly gathered her documents, her movements as deliberate as they had been when she first knelt on the floor. "Evelyn, I want full incident reports filed with legal, HR, and public relations within the hour. I want a complete documentation package on my desk before the press conference." "It's already in progress, Ms. Sterling," Director Reed replied. The corporate machine was adapting, learning, evolving in real time. Through the glass partition of the manager's office, customers watched as Thorne packed 12 years of his life into a single, pathetic cardboard box. His hands shook as he took down framed photos of company awards and customer appreciation plaques, now bitter testaments to a life and career he had just immolated on a pyre of his own prejudice. Chloe narrated the aftermath for her still-growing audience. "He's cleaning out his office right now. This is just surreal. 45 minutes ago he was calling her trash, and now he's unemployed, unemployable, and his name is a global synonym for bigotry." Ava stood in the center of the lobby, the epicenter of the earthquake she had just triggered. Her phone buzzed non-stop with calls from board members, legal counsel, and crisis management teams. She answered the call from her chairman. "James, I'm still at Branch 47. Yes, the situation is contained. No, we are not issuing a quiet apology and settling this. We are leading on this. We're going to set a new standard for the entire industry." Her voice carried across the marble lobby, a public declaration of her commitment to accountability. "Schedule an emergency press conference for 2 o'clock this afternoon. We're going to embrace full, radical transparency. We're not hiding from this, James. We are owning it." Director Reed approached with her final report. "Ms. Gunt, or Ms. Sterling, all documentation is complete. Legal has everything they need for the federal compliance reporting." "Excellent," Ava said. "Now, let's talk about permanent changes." She addressed the entire lobby, her voice that of a leader remaking her corporate culture in real time. "Effective immediately, Branch 47 will become our national pilot location for a new program, the Dignity Banking Initiative." Jessica Park, the newly minted interim manager, stepped forward, her notepad already open. "What does that involve, ma'am?" "First, unconscious bias recognition training becomes mandatory for all customer-facing employees, not some once-a-year online refresher course. I'm talking about intensive, quarterly, in-person sessions with real-world scenarios, facilitated by leading civil rights experts." Chloe adjusted her camera, recognizing she was witnessing corporate policy being written live on the air. "Second," Ava continued, "our customer interaction protocols are being rewritten from the ground up. Every single customer will receive the exact same high standard of service, regardless of their appearance, their accent, or their perceived economic status. This will be monitored, and there will be zero tolerance for deviation." David Miller consulted his security manual. "Ma'am, what about legitimate security threats?" "Legitimate security is based on actual, observable threats, David, not on assumptions derived from someone's clothing or the color of their skin," Ava countered. She opened her laptop and projected its screen onto the lobby's large digital display wall, which usually showed stock tickers. Now, it showed a policy framework she was drafting in real time. Dignity Banking Initiative, Branch 47 Pilot Program. Phase 1. Immediate implementation. 30 days. AI-powered customer interaction monitoring system deployed. Bias detection algorithms will analyze transaction patterns and flag anomalies. Real-time coaching alerts sent to employee devices to correct potential bias before it escalates. Eleanor Vance moved closer, her eyes wide with amazement. You're using technology to watch for discrimination. My heavens, that's brilliant. Thorne. Phase 2. Cultural transformation. 60-90 days. Creation of a community advisory board composed of local residents and civil rights leaders to provide oversight. Mandatory monthly bias audits conducted by an independent third-party organization. Public quarterly reports on all progress metrics to be posted in this lobby and online. How will we measure our success? Jessica asked, her pen flying across her notepad. With data, Jessica, hard data, customer satisfaction surveys, broken down by demographic, transaction completion rates across all racial and ethnic categories, complaint resolution times. We will even implement a mystery shopper program with a diverse group of testers to ensure compliance. The lobby had transformed from a crime scene into a policy workshop. Customers, employees, and security guards were now active participants in a corporate reformation. 10:20 a.m. The board meeting was in 10 minutes. Ava's phone displayed incoming calls from rival bank CEOs, federal regulators, and the heads of civil rights organizations. The story was no longer about Apex. It was about a cancer in the entire financial industry. Phase 3. Systemic expansion. 6 months. A new $25 million community investment fund dedicated to providing loans for minority-owned small businesses. New diversity hiring requirements, a minimum of 40% representation for women and minorities in all management roles. Formal partnerships with local and national civil rights organizations for ongoing oversight and guidance. Just then, Thorne emerged from his office, flanked by security, clutching his sad cardboard box. His face was ashen, his confidence utterly shattered. As he passed the group, Eleanor Vance spoke directly to him, her voice not hateful but weary with a lifetime of seeing men like him. I truly hope you learned something from this terrible day, young man. Thorne stopped. He turned, and for the first time, a flicker of what looked like genuine soul-crushing remorse appeared on his face. I'm sorry, he said, his voice cracking. To everyone, I was wrong. The apology carried no defiance, no excuses, just the hollow, broken sound of a man who had finally been forced to look at the ugliness inside himself. Chloe captured the moment. He just apologized, she whispered to her viewers. I think he actually gets it now. Security escorted Thorne through the main entrance. His 12 years at Apex Sovereign Bank ended with the quiet, automatic swish of closing glass doors. Ava returned to her policy presentation, her focus absolute. Phase 4. Industry Leadership, 1 year, the first annual Discrimination Prevention Conference, to be hosted by Apex Sovereign Bank. Our proprietary bias detection software will be made open source and shared with all our competitors for free. Congressional testimony on establishing new federal standards for banking industry reform. Ms. Sterling, Jessica asked, her voice full of awe. This will be incredibly expensive to implement. Jessica, Ava said, turning to face her new manager. This morning, we lost $847 million in market value because of one man's prejudice. Believe me when I tell you, prevention is infinitely cheaper than the cure. The cold, hard, mathematical logic was undeniable. Discrimination wasn't just morally bankrupt, it was financially catastrophic. David studied the display. This new monitoring system, it will track everything we do. It will track patterns, David, Ava clarified. Are certain customers consistently being treated differently? Are wait times and transaction times varying wildly by demographic? Are proper complaint procedures being followed for everyone? Good employees who treat every customer with dignity and respect will have absolutely nothing to worry about. Employees who don't, well, you just saw the consequences. Chloe's live stream had become required viewing in C-suites and HR departments across the country. Her footage was already being downloaded and edited into training materials by other corporations eager to avoid their own Julian Thorne moment. 10:25 a.m. The board meeting was in 5 minutes. Ava's final policy edition appeared on the screen, a stroke of brutal, poetic justice. The Julian Thorne Memorial Training Program. All new hires across the entire corporation will study the video of this incident as part of their mandatory orientation. Annual refresher courses will use today's footage to role-play dignity-based customer interactions. The program will serve as a permanent reminder of the profound cost of prejudice. The room was silent. Thorne's name would now forever be synonymous, not with success, but with failure. Not with authority, but with accountability. Mrs. Vance smiled, a deep, satisfied, approving smile. You're making sure this can never, ever be swept under the rug. You're making sure this never happens again. That's the goal, Eleanor, Ava said. Permanent, systemic change, not just temporary punishment. Director Reed received a final notification on her tablet. Ms. Sterling, the press conference has been confirmed for 2 p.m. All major networks will be there. Good, Ava said. Transparency is the first step to rebuilding trust. Chloe, now a seasoned veteran of this incredible story, addressed her 50,000 viewers directly. I've been streaming for just over an hour, and I feel like I've watched an entire corporate culture get torn down and rebuilt from scratch. This is what accountability is supposed to look like. Her audience hadn't just witnessed justice being served. They had witnessed a broken system being reformed in real time. David approached Ava with one final, genuine question. Ma'am, why did you handle it this way? You're the CEO. You could have just had him fired quietly, without any of this. Ava paused and considered the question, her eyes looking back at the spot where he had struck her. Because quiet solutions, David, create repeated problems. It's the public, transparent, and sometimes painful accountability that creates permanent change. Jessica Park closed her notepad, her eyes shining with a new sense of purpose. When do we start implementing all of this? We already have, Jessica, Ava said, gesturing to the lobby, the employees, the customers, and to Chloe's phone. Today was phase 1. 6 months later, Ava Sterling walked through the same marble lobby of Branch 47. The morning sun still streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, but it illuminated a new bronze plaque by the entrance, home of the Dignity Banking Initiative, Excellence in Inclusive Service 2025. The lobby was transformed. It buzzed with a vibrant, diverse energy. Eleanor Vance was sitting at the investment desk, laughing as she reviewed her portfolio with a young, brilliant black financial advisor. A family speaking Spanish was being patiently assisted by a bilingual teller. The new branch manager, Jessica Riley, greeted Ava with a warm, confident smile. The digital displays no longer just showed stock prices. They showed real-time customer satisfaction metrics, 97% positive ratings across all demographic categories. Complaint resolution times, which used to be an industry standard 10 business days, now averaged less than 24 hours. Chloe Chen was there, filming a follow-up story. Her original live stream had been viewed over 100 million times across all platforms and had won her a prestigious journalism award. She was no longer just a student. She was a respected voice in corporate accountability. 6 months ago, this lobby was a crime scene, she narrated to her massive online following. Today, it's a blueprint. It's the new gold standard for inclusive service in the entire financial industry. The Julian Thorne Memorial Training Program was now being licensed and used by over 200 other financial institutions. His name had become a verb in corporate circles. Don't pull a Thorne. As for the man himself, after being blacklisted from the financial industry, he had eventually found work teaching a basic financial literacy class to newly arrived immigrant families at a local community college, a humbling, ironic fate that forced him to daily confront the very communities he had once so callously dismissed. David Miller, now the corporate head of security training, had completely rewritten the security protocols for all 400 Apex branches. "We don't train our people to look for stereotypes anymore," he explained. "We train them to look for behaviors. It's about what people do, not what they look like." But the real proof of the change was in the small moments. It was the young black entrepreneur who had been denied a loan by Thorne 6 months prior, now proudly showing Jessica the keys to his new storefront, funded by the new Community Investment Fund. It was Eleanor Vance bringing her granddaughter in to open her first savings account, confident that the child would be treated with the dignity and respect she deserved. At exactly 10:25 a.m., 6 months to the minute after the incident, Ava stood on the exact spot where Thorne had slapped her. The marble floor was polished to a mirror shine, but the real transformation was the invisible one, a seismic shift in corporate culture that now prioritized human dignity over lazy, hateful prejudice. She addressed Chloe's camera one final time. "Change doesn't happen overnight," she said, her voice resonating with the hard-won wisdom of a leader. "But it always starts with a single moment. It starts when one person is brave enough to document an injustice. It continues when witnesses refuse to stay silent. And it succeeds when accountability is not just a punishment, but a foundation for building something better, something fairer for everyone." Her words were a call to action, a message of empowerment. If you have ever experienced discrimination, your voice matters, your story matters. Document it, report it, demand better. Share your own experiences in the comments below because stories are the fuel for change. She paused, her gaze direct and intense. If this story inspired you, if it made you expect more from the institutions that serve you, then hit that subscribe button for more stories of real-world justice. Share this video with someone who needs to see that change is not just possible, but necessary. And always remember, dignity is not a privilege. It is a right. In banking, in business, and in life, everyone deserves respect. The final frame of Chloe's video was a slow zoom onto the bronze plaque. Dignity Banking Initiative. Where change begins. The story had become a legend. The change had become permanent. You've heard the story. Now, what will you do with it? At True Beat Stories, we believe reflection is good, but action is better. Subscribe, share, speak. Because awareness is only the first step. The next chapter is yours to write.